Hey guys, I've got a bit of a different video for y'all today. As you probably know, Fairy Tale by Stephen King was released this week, and I've already read it, and I've already uploaded a review for it on the channel. So if you haven't checked that out, you can go check that out. But for today, I'm actually going to be just looking at the book and all of the really cool illustrations in the book. Even though I didn't absolutely love this book, I was kind of underwhelmed by a lot of it, and I ended up giving it 3 stars. I will admit that the cover is outstanding, and just the way that the book is like packaged and the way that it's presented, and like I said, all of the cool illustrations throughout the book, I really enjoy that aspect. So basically for this video, I'm just going to be showing off my physical copy, and I'm going to be going through all of the illustrations that are at the beginning of each chapter here. So of course, the further on we get into the book, the more spoilery it's going to get. So if you haven't read all of the book, you might want to wait until you finish the book, because definitely the last few chapters, basically all of the chapters, the illustrations have to do with what's in the book, so it will spoil the book for you. So if you finish the book, and if you've read it already, go ahead and watch it. But if you haven't, I would highly suggest finishing the book and then coming back to watch this later. But enough of the preamble, let's go ahead and jump right into it. So of course, let's start with the amazing cover. And I just love, the boy and the dog, and they're looking at the spiral staircase. And of course, from a distance, it looks like an eye, which for me is probably referring to, something like the eyes of the dragon, right? That's when I first saw this cover, that's what I was anticipating. And just overall, the colors look really good, like the blue and the yellow, and then kind of like the orange and red for the eye or the spiral staircase. And just the book itself feels really good. Like if you get your hands on a physical copy, like each one of these bricks is like raised up a little bit. So like just even feeling the book, it feels really nice. So yeah, it's got a really cool cover, and the spine is very cool as well. And of course, that definitely looks like an eye from the way that it's presented. And then in the back here, you've essentially got a note from Charlie Reed, the main character. I'm sure I can tell this story. I'm also sure no one will believe it. That's fine with me. Telling it will be enough. My problem, and I'm sure many writers have it, not just newbies like me, is deciding where to start. My first thought was with the shed, because that's where my adventures really began, but then I realized I would have to tell about Mr. Bowditch first, and how we became close. Only that never would have happened except for the miracle that happened to my father. A very ordinary miracle, you could say, one that's happened to many thousands of men and women since 1935, but it seemed like a miracle to a kid. Only that isn't the right place either, because I don't think my father would have needed a miracle if it hadn't been for that goddamn bridge. So that's where I need to start, with the goddamn Sycamore Street Bridge. And now, thinking of those things, I see a clear thread leading up through the years to Mr. Bowditch and the padlocked shed behind his ramshackle old Victorian. But a thread is easy to break, so not a thread, but a chain. A strong one. And I was the kid with the shackle clamped around his wrist. So yeah, that's basically like the first page of the book, essentially. So yeah, that's pretty cool that they have that on the back there. Yeah, let's actually dive into the inside of the book now. Okay, so you open up the book, and you've got like pretty cool orange end papers here, which I think really goes well with the blue. And then you've got the summary here, which I'm not going to read just because it is definitely spoilery, and I'm super glad that I did not read that, so I won't force that upon y'all. But of course, you've got Stephen King Fairy Tale, and it is thinking of REHERB, and of course HPL. And I'm pretty sure all of those are acronyms for authors, especially I know that one is, but these two I'm not quite sure of, but yeah. And then we've got, and always let your conscience be your guide, Blue Fairy. All right, now we're getting to the actual book. And this is how it starts. Chapter 1, the goddamn bridge, the miracle, the howling. And of course, you've got this really cool illustration of the house. This reminds me of like The October Country by Ray Bradbury, because all of those stories have illustrations, and this definitely looks sort of like the cover of October Country a little bit. It also reminds me of the house from Psycho. But yeah, I think that's a really cool illustration. And then we get to chapter 2, Mr. Bowditch, Radar, Night in the Psycho House. So of course, it's definitely referring to Psycho. But yeah, it's another really cool illustration. And then we get to chapter 3, A Hospital Visit, Quitters Never Win, and The Shed. And of course, this is referring to the shed where, the portal fantasy aspect comes in. But in this part of the story, he has not gotten inside the shed yet. So get another pretty cool illustration there. And then we get to chapter 4, Visiting Mr. Bowditch, Andy Chin, The Cellar, In Other News, A Hospital Meeting. And of course, that's the main character, Charlie Reed, with, of course, the animal companion, Radar, the German Shepherd. I very much like this illustration too. And then we get to chapter 5, Shopping, My Father's Pipe, A Call from Mr. Bowditch, The Flower Canister. And of course, you get the pipe there, and then you get Radar, who's looking kind of ragged. Radar in the story, I think, is 14 or 15 years old. And yeah, she's getting pretty old. And then we get to chapter 6, another hospital visit, The Safe, Stantonville, Gold Greed, Mr. Bowditch Comes Home. And of course, that's the safe where, there's a gun, and then you got the gold pellets, and they're kind of a little bit everywhere. But yeah, that's the safe. And then we get to chapter 7, First Night, Now You Know Jack, A Simple Woodcutter, Therapy, My Father's Visit, Limparza, Mr. Bowditch Makes a Promise. And of course, this is definitely referring to Jack and the Beanstalk. And of course, this is Fairy Tale by Stephen King. So he does make a lot of allusions and references to random fairy tales and Jack and the Beanstalk, of course. And Charlie is actually, at one point in the story, it's like, oh, I'm doing like a reverse Jack and the Beanstalk, where instead of going up into the sky, he's going down into the ground. And then we get to chapter 8, Water Under the Bridge, The Fascination of Gold, An Old Dog, Newspaper News, and Arrest. And of course, we get Radar looking cute and sleeping next to the TV. I really like this one. And we get chapter 9, The Thing in the Shed, A Dangerous Place, 911, The Wallet, A Good Conversation. And we get the tape recording, which will come up in chapter 10. And then, the gun. Again, another good drawing. And then we get to chapter 10, Wreckage, Mrs. Richland, Obit Thieves, The Tale of the Tape, Inside the Shed, The Tale of the Tape Continued. And of course, there's the giant cockroach that's in the shed. And it's like, I forget how big he described it, but it's giant. So of course, that one's pretty cool as well. Then we get to chapter 11, That Night, School Days, Dad Leaves, The Well of the Worlds, The Other, The Old Woman, A Nasty Surprise. And then of course, this is Charlie actually getting into the shed and taking apart the floorboards and seeing the spiral staircase. And where does it go? He will find out soon enough. And we get to chapter 12, Christopher Polly, Spilled Gold, Not So Nice, Preparations. And of course, we get the guy trying to rob Charlie, but Charlie's got a gun, and then there's gold pellets everywhere. Another good drawing. And then we get to chapter 13, Calling Andy, Radar Decides, Stu, Googer. This, I think, is Dora, if I remember correctly. She does not have a mouth, or it's, kind of sewed shut. And then her horse. Yep, another interesting drawing. And then we get to chapter 14, Leia and Falada Help Her, A Meeting on the Road, Wolfies, Two Moons. And of course, this is showing the two moons. This is the moons that you see in the sky. And eventually you get towards the end of the book and something interesting happens with the moons. And then we get to chapter 15, Leaving Dora, Refugees, Peterkin, Woody. And of course we get a very old looking man. I believe this is the blind man. I'm terrible with names. I think his name is either, well, it's obviously either Peterkin or Woody. I just can't remember which one. But yeah, we get this very old looking dude. He's blind. And yeah, pretty good drawing. And then we get to chapter 16, Kingdom Road, Claudia, Instructions, The Noisemaker, and The Monarchs. Now, I really like this one. This is Claudia, of course, and she is the deaf one. And she's on her bike, and there's monarch butterflies flying around here, and there's tons of monarch butterflies in this story. So if you like monarch butterflies, you might like this book. And then we get to chapter 17, Leaving Claudia, Remembering Jenny, A Night in the Storage Shed, The Gate, The Haunted City. And I really like this one too. And you've got Radar riding in the back there with Charlie. And yeah, you kind of see how like desolate of a place this is. Yeah, I really like this drawing too. And then we get to chapter 18, Hana, Pinwheel Paths, The Horror in the Pool, The Sundial at Last, An Unwelcome Encounter. Now this one I really like because of the juxtaposition of like the, interesting and good looking environment. And then obviously, a mermaid who is supposed to be known as being very beautiful, but obviously she was struck down dead and now is decaying in the pool. So yeah, I really do enjoy this one. Also, I don't know about y'all, but when I got to the audiobook and the narrator started singing this, I started losing my shit. I thought this was hilarious. And then we get to chapter 19, The Trouble with Dogs, The Pedestal, The Graveyard, and The Outer Gate. Now, this is definitely one of my favorites. Like, look at that. That is an amazing drawing. Like, just look at how just messed up that guy is now. Oh, man. Very detailed and very cool looking. And then we get to chapter 20, Durance Vile, Hammy, Feeding Time, The Lord High, Interrogation. And we get a very cool illustration of the night soldiers. And yeah, look at that. Very cool. I do really enjoy that. And then we get to chapter 21, The Belts, Innamin, Not a Spotch of Gray, Dungeon Days. And yeah, they're essentially in prison in the dungeons, and yeah, a lot of grisly detail with these illustrations. Yeah, I do enjoy it. And then we get to chapter 22, The Playing Field, Amit, Washing Up, Cake, and The Gas Jets. And this is a very cool and inspiring picture. You've got, obviously, Radar running in a field with the monarch butterflies at night, and you've got the two moons in the background, and the moons are definitely getting a little closer together there. I do really enjoy this one. And then we get to chapter 23, Tempest e Umbra in Mente, sorry if I'm butchering that, Hazy History, Claw, A Note, Seedings. And you've got very big muscular dude. I think that's Claw. And yeah, he's very muscular. Good God, I would not want to fight that dude. And then we get to chapter 24, First Round, The Last Set, My Prince, What Do You Think? We get a very just weird looking guy. He's got like a square head. I don't know why I'm thinking of King of the Hill now, Hank Hill. Are so propane and propane accessories. Oh, that's so stupid. But yeah, it is a good drawing. Very interesting, unique looking dude. And then we get to chapter 25, A Banquet, I Receive a Visitor, Inspiration, Doesn't Knock, Who Wants to Live Forever? And of course we get this really cool explosion of one of the night soldiers. And just a lot of detail here, and like you zoom in a little bit, like you can see like the tongue and the upper and lower jaw and the eyes. Yeah, really cool drawing. Really cool explosion. And then we get to chapter 26, the tunnel in the station, scratching, the trolley house, Red Molly, the welcoming party, a mother's grief. And we've got the giant bats here. Also pretty cool looking. Zoom in a little bit. Yeah. Oh, their wings are like almost see-through. Kind of cool. Yeah, pretty cool. And then we get to chapter 27, a conference, the snab, no Disney prince, prince and princess, the pact. And of course we get a good looking mermaid there, juxtaposed with a giant cricket. I think it's one of the giant red crickets, yeah. But yeah, pretty interesting drawing. If you were just like flipping through the book and like you randomly came across this, you're like, what the hell is this story gonna be about? And then we get to chapter 28, Into the City, the Sound of Mourning, Hana, she who once sang, Gold, the kitchen, the receiving chamber, we must go up to go down. And yes, another interesting drawing. I think those are the gold pellets, if I believe. And yeah, another good drawing. We're almost done here, and we get to chapter 29, the lift, the spiral staircase, Jeff, the Lord High, the Queen of Impus will do her duty. And we get another kind of grisly, kind of disgusting thing here with the rats everywhere, and then you've got this guy who's got like rats going into his mouth, like, yeah. Another really cool drawing. And then we get to chapter 30, One More Stop, the Dungeon, Resolute, Impossible Stars, the Dark Well, Gog Magog, and the Bite. And then obviously the two moons from previous chapters, they collide. And that's a really cool illustration. I think so. And then we get to chapter 31, Visitors, the Queen in White, Mercy, Woody and Claudia, leaving Impus. And then, of course, after the trouble's all over, you got the dog, and then you got Charlie with getting the girl, and everything's all peaceful and fine now. Yep. And we get to chapter 32. Here's your happy ending. And very simple. It's just Charlie and his dad reuniting, and you've got a little tiny monarch butterfly in the background. I do really enjoy this one as well. And finally, we get to the epilogue. Questions asked and answered, some at least. A final trip to Impus. And we just get a monarch butterfly sitting on a rose. Again, another beautiful illustration, and I believe that's the last one we get. I believe so. And then we've just got the brief acknowledgements. And yeah, that's about it. And then we get orange end papers, and then the man himself, Stephen King. Yep. And I've already showed off the back there. Oh, flip that back, yep. And yeah, that's all of the illustrations in this book. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Very different from what I normally do here, but I decided to not mess with the algorithm because I decided to go ahead and post my fairy tale review on Thursday just to try to be one of the first people to upload it, right? But I also wanted to not post a video on Friday, so I was thinking of a quick video I could do. And yeah, this one seemed like a very interesting idea. I have no idea how well it's going to turn out, but hopefully you guys will watch it and enjoy it. And of course, let me know what you thought about the video down in the comments below. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my YouTube channel and the Book Astronomer Discord, where the Stephen King Readathon will take place in October. I will leave the link down below for that. You can come join my Patreon, throw me a buck or two if you want to support me there. I also have my Amazon wish list if you want to buy me a book. And yeah, I think that's about it. Thank you so much for watching and have a fantastic day.